after both of Rosalind Collins' parents passed away in an accident when she was 13 years old. She moved in with her maternal uncle Mason's family in the small town of Leavenworth in Washington. Her uncle worked long hours at a logging warehouse, barely making ends meet. And her aunt, Tabitha, she was a stay-at-home mom to 2 of her kids. Aunt Tabitha didn't like Rosalind and didn't want Rosalind living with them, since they weren't well-to-do themselves and taking care of her would be a burden. Hence, when Rosalind moved in, she was never nice with her, and Rosalind found herself doing all the house chores. And when she turned 16, she started working at a daycare nearby to help out the family. This year, Rosalind finally graduated high school and was trying to apply to a college in the city, and hopefully, if she got accepted, she would move out. Rosalind's life wasn't picture perfect, but in all the difficulties, she had one solace, Daniel, whom she met in school. However, Rosalind was sure to keep this a secret, because if her aunt came to know, she would make it a big issue. Tonight, Daniel was dropping by to pick up her college admission papers that had to be sent out immediately. Fortunately for Rosalind, her room was on the first floor along with the living room and the kitchen, and her uncle, aunt, and cousins lived on the second. Around 7 p.m., Rosalind texted Daniel, "Hurry, everyone's upstairs." "Coming." Daniel left his bicycle at the Turner's fence and sneaked in through the backyard to Rosalind's window. "Got the papers?" "Yeah, here. Now go before anyone sees you." "Wait, when are we meeting again?" "Well, now that school's over, I'm not allowed to go anywhere, but maybe after work at the daycare." "Okay, I'll see you there." It was a Friday night in the Turner household. When Tabitha returned downstairs, she found Rosalind doing the chores. The winds were quite heavy out. The tree in the front yard swayed side to side as the rain began to drizzle lightly. Around 8 p.m., the bell suddenly rang. Tabitha hurried out to check who had come so late. "Hello, I'm Edgar Aldane. Is this the Turner's house?" "Mr. Aldane? Yes, I'm Tabitha Turner." "Mrs. Turner, I've come here because I've actually fallen into quite the dilemma tonight. An urgent business meeting of mine has come up, and my child's nanny can't stay past 9 due to a family emergency. I went to the daycare nearby searching for a babysitter, and they recommended me to your niece, Roseline Collins. Will she please look after my baby tonight? I'll call her right out." Tabitha turned and yelled for Rosalind, but when Rosalind rushed to the door, she was surprised to see Mr. Aldane. "Rosalind, Mr. Aldane needs you to babysit his child tonight." "But it's so late." "But this is important. The nanny has to leave for a family emergency, so there's no one to care for the baby." "But how will I be there all by myself the whole night?" Seeing Rosalind's reluctance, Mr. Aldane took out an envelope. "It won't be for long. I'll come back before midnight, and I'm willing to pay you double." Before Rosalind could say anything, her aunt accepted the money. Reluctantly, Rosalind nodded her head and got ready to leave with him. What was so urgent at this time on this rainy night? And the nanny too had a family emergency? Leavenworth was a small town, and everyone knew Mr. Aldane. He was one of the richest men who lived in his mansion on the far end of Leavenworth by the edge of the mountainside. In this town, everyone spoke of a mystery surrounding the Aldane mansion. It was about a year and a half ago that Mr. Aldane's wife had mysteriously passed away during childbirth, and ever since then, Mr. Aldane had been raising this child of his all alone. In the rain, Rosalind hurried out to get into his car. "You'll have to be all alone with the baby, but there's no reason to worry. The Aldane mansion is very safe." "Okay," Rosalind said. but deep down inside, she was feeling a little scared. Aunt Tabitha sent me to babysit Mr. Aldane's baby. I'm in his car, on the way right now. To the Aldane mansion, this late? Nobody even dares to go to that side of town. I didn't have a choice. I'll have to stay there all alone till midnight. Don't worry, I'm coming. I'll stay there with you. But how will you come? It's really far. I'll take my bicycle. It'll probably take 1 hour. In about 20 minutes, Mr. Aldane and Rosalind drove in through the large metal gates around the Aldane mansion. Seconds into knocking the door, the nurse opened up, looking quite anxious. Go sit in the car. I'll take you, Mr. Aldane said. As the nurse hurried out, Rosalind followed in. She looked around the mansion. There were antique decor set up all around. Bows, arrows, masks, ancient beadwork, and a large chandelier sparkling up top. But what gave Rosalind the chills was the loneliness and the darkness. The lights were all dimmed out, and every step she took, the sound echoed in the air. To the far corner, a portrait of Mrs. Aldane. She was a beautiful woman. The baby is sleeping upstairs, Mr. Aldane interrupted. He then escorted Rosalind to the kitchen and opened the fridge. If you're hungry, there are some snacks here. Feel free to have them. And if the baby gets hungry, feed him this bottle of baby formula. Rosalind then followed Mr. Aldane upstairs and down a long hall to a single room where he suddenly stopped and turned to her. My son has a condition. He suffers from light sensitivity, so there's a candle lit in the room. You mustn't take him out into the light, and try not to make noise. He wakes up to the slightest motion. He then slowly creaked the door open and walked towards the crib. My son. The baby was sleeping sound. As the rain began to pour heavily over the roof and the thunder rumbled, Mr. Aldane walked to the corner of the room and showed Rosalind the bathroom before they walked out again. I should head out before the rain gets too heavy. Come downstairs and lock the door, and when I return, check before you open it. As Mr. Aldane went out the front door, Rosalind caught sight of the nurse sitting anxiously in his car. Was it the family emergency or something else? Why was she behaving so odd, so scared? As soon as Rosalind locked the door, she heard a second click from outside. Mr. Aldane had locked it from outside as well, and the whole bungalow once again fell silent. She then hurried back upstairs and tried texting Daniel, but she no longer had network. She went back into the nursery. Looking around the dimly lit room, Rosalind drew the curtains a bit to take a look outside. There were numerous plants and trees, and by the window itself was a thick root growing up the mansion. Daniel would probably be able to climb up this way. She caught a signal. Are you there yet? Yes, I'm here. How far along are you? I'll be there in 20 minutes. With the slightest sound of her phone, the baby suddenly started shifting. I'll talk to you later. The baby's crying. Rosalind hurried to soothe him. The child was so cute. He had just started teething. But when rocking the crib or picking him up didn't work, Rosalind set him down and quickly ran to the kitchen and brought the formula. She slowly rocked the crib as she held the bottle to him, and soon the baby started to fall asleep. It was just then that Daniel texted her again. I'm here. Mr. Aldane locked the mansion from outside, but there's a window in the nursery. You can climb up. Alright, I'm coming. Slowly picking up the bottle, Rosalind went to open the window. A heavy gust of wind blew in, and so did the rain. But as she went to look out below, she dropped the bottle in fright when a few bats flew into the room. With a commotion, the baby woke up again. Rosalind took the child in her arms, once swaying side to side in her arms, then trying to sit him on her lap, and lastly standing up and putting him over her shoulder until he finally fell asleep. And just as she laid him down, Daniel climbed in. Did the baby fall asleep? Don't make noise. He wakes up to the slightest noise or light. As the rain began soaking everything inside, Rosalind hurried to close the window, staring out at the large maple tree in the backyard, now seemingly so dark. Are those bats or owls on that tree? Daniel, shh! Rosalind then quickly went out to the kitchen and brought back some paper towels for Daniel and cleaned up the baby formula she had spilled all over. Just barely stacking them aside, the two then tiptoed out the room. You're still soaking wet. The things I do for you. There's a fireplace downstairs. You can dry up there. So Rosalind and Daniel went downstairs and started up the fireplace. Aren't there any mirrors in this mansion? You're right. I didn't see any. In fact, the bathroom upstairs doesn't even have a mirror. Strange. Daniel walked around amazed by everything in the mansion. This feels so unreal. Everyone talks of the mystery of the Aldane mansion, and we're here right now, all alone. The couple walked around, picking up the small showpieces and looking at the decor hung up on the walls. Everything is like from centuries ago. How old is this mask? Well, these are rich people. He probably collects antiques. Daniel and Rosalind then stopped by the large portrait. This is his wife. She looks so young. You know what people say about her. There's no explanation to her death. I thought she passed away during her childbirth. Rumors are she mysteriously passed away at the time of her childbirth, but nobody knows for sure what actually happened. Sometime into exploring the mansion, the two suddenly heard the sound of the car outside. That must be him. I'll go and wait for you outside. Text me when you leave, so I can follow you guys. Alright. After Daniel went out the window in the nursery again, Rosalind quickly picked up all the tissues and hurried to the kitchen to throw them out. When she brought it out, however, she was surprised to see that the tissues soaked in baby formula had all turned black. Hearing the doorbell, she quickly discarded everything and went to answer it. Peeking through the peephole, she saw Mr. Aldane. When she opened up, Mr. Aldane looked at her strangely. She felt a little uncomfortable when he didn't move his gaze, but alas, he finally spoke up. It's getting late. I should drop you home. But what about the baby? He's sleeping. He won't be waking up the whole night. As Rosalind sat out in the car, Mr. Aldane checked up on the baby before he locked up the mansion again. This time, the entire ride back home, he was absolutely silent. It was midnight when they reached the Turner's house. Thank you. If you ever need anything, the Aldane mansion is open to you. Rosalind awkwardly smiled. She found Mr. Aldane quite odd. But she was finally home and relieved. Everyone else was asleep, and Rosalind too felt awfully tired. I'm home. You should go home too. And before she knew it, she fell asleep. The next day, she woke up feeling a strange headache and her aunt screaming outside. It's 7 p.m. and look how this princess is still sleeping. Rosalind woke up startled to realize she had slept through the whole night and the entire day. But why was she feeling like this? A horrible migraine, and she felt so hungry. She went out to the kitchen and made herself a sandwich, but when she sat down to eat it, she felt like gagging, swallowing down the food. How old is this? Is this expired? There you are. Is this all you do? Sleep and eat? Help me clean around the house. Aunt, I'm not feeling too well. Excuses. But Rosalind truly wasn't feeling well. It was late that night. She decided to take a shower. Perhaps that would get rid of the headache. What is that? A pimple? Rosalind lay in bed that night, still feeling awful. What was happening with her? Hey Daniel, did you get sick after that night? No, I'm fine. Then why was she feeling like this? Hearing about her condition, her uncle came to see her. How are you feeling? Horrible. I heard you went to the Haldane mansion. Did anything happen there? No, uncle. It's probably because I got wet in the rain. Alright, did you send in your college applications? I did. That's good. Why don't you take some painkillers and get some rest? But the medicine had no effect. And Rosalind's condition only worsened. She could no longer sleep. And the following day, her uncle was at work, her cousins at a friend's house. The house was silent. Maybe she could try to sleep now. You're still in bed? What do you think of yourself? We'll raise you and serve you? Aunt, please leave me alone. I'm not feeling well. Who do you think you are? A princess like your mother? Living in a free house, eating free food? You're nothing but a burden. Leave me alone. Tabitha suddenly fell silent, seeing Rosalind get up from her bed and walk towards her. Don't you dare look at me like that. But now, she felt frightened, seeing Rosalind's eyes become red, her skin pale, as she began to transform into... Okay, you go rest. What did you say about my mother? Everyone thinks she slipped down the stairs and snapped her neck. But I know the truth. They were the ones who gave me shelter, who took care of me. These cousins of mine will now grow up without a mother, just like me. What have I done? Daniel, forget me. I'm not the same anymore. What are you saying? What happened? You won't understand. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.